from the White House, but that is not surprising. Officials here say the president is taking the long view of this war, doesn't want to react to the daily ups and downs. Still, a tough night tonight will make tomorrow even more difficult for the president when he visits Camp Lejeune in North Carolina. That camp has lost a dozen Marines to the fighting in Iraq. 7 more are missing, and the president will have what is bound to be an emotional meeting with family members. Aides say the president was full of joy for Army Private Jessica Lynch and her family, but even that was tempered by the knowledge that the commandos who rescued her from a hospital in Al-Nasiriyah also found 11 bodies, some thought to be members of Private Lynch's unit, killed or captured with Jessica when they took a wrong turn and wound up in enemy territory a week ago Sunday. White House Press Secretary Ari Fleischer says the president is proud of the rescuers and proud of the commanders who put the plan in motion on their own after receiving a tip about Jessica's whereabouts. Fleischer says there was no need for Mr. Bush to sign off on it.
These are the exact types of things that commanders in chief entrust to their people in the field to do. That's the way the military structure works best. That's the way the president works it.
Fleischer took issue with the USA Today report that the president is burdened by the strain of war, angry at the media, and frustrated by retired generals second-guessing the progress of coalition forces. Fleischer says the president is comfortable with the decisions he's made. Serious, yes. Burdened, no.
I think it's fair to say that the hardest part was the lead-up to the decision to use force. I think for any commander-in-chief, for the president, for this president, that to him represented the most difficult time of deciding whether or not force must be used, knowing that it would put American men and women in harm's way. Once the decision was made, this is a president who was very comfortable, who was very steady with the decision made.
His critics call the president's reluctance to reassess a decision once it's made a sign of weakness, a lack of flexibility, but supporters call it a strength. Defense Secretary Rumsfeld is quoted as saying the president thinks things through, and once he's made a decision, he doesn't go back and worry about it. Shepard?
Wendell Goler live tonight at the White House. Wendell, thanks. Coming up, coalition forces now within 20 miles of Baghdad, inside 20 miles. But the Pentagon says what's left of Saddam's Republican Guard is coming down to meet them. Not all of them, not big columns of Republican Guard, but some Republican Guard troops are moving south. Why is that, is the question. Maybe to do some reinforcing, to do some backups for those who have been eliminated. We'll talk about all that coming up and the latest movements on the battlefield. And another picture from the front, Staff Sergeant Larry Trimmer from Williamstown, New Jersey, doing his part for some hungry Iraqi women. And we'll go live to the battlefield. This is a live picture from Rick Leventhal's camera, which is just south, somewhere south of Baghdad. He'll give us the report from the battlefield on movements out there today, and join us live with some of your questions sent in by email to foxreport@foxnews.com. This is Fox News Channel, where we cover the news, not the other news channels.
The perfect accessory for your right foot. Cadillac CTS. Breakthrough.
Bang & Olufsen relies on HP technology to produce and distribute products that bring the world perfect sound.
Nobody delivers expert Motorcraft brake service in 2 hours or less like your participating Ford, Lincoln, or Mercury dealership. Or we'll give you a free oil change. Plus, enter to win trips to the Caribbean or to the world premiere of the hot new movie Pirates of the Caribbean, The Curse of the Black Pearl.
Nobody can do auto service like we do.
16 minutes past 8 a.m. on a beautiful Thursday morning outside of Saddam land, where they're just having breakfast on the battlefield, and Rick Leventhal joins us. Tonight he is on the satellite, I believe. Indeed he is. Rick, what do you know from the battlefield?
Well, I can tell you that it's been relatively quiet here the last couple of days, at least for Alpha Company. But of course, there are several companies within our battalion, and one of them, Echo Company, reservists from Fort Detrick, Maryland, has been seeing some action off to the west of us, sort of in an area where we were the last couple.
We're live at the Pentagon, and Brett, let's begin with this amazing development and back to those pictures from outside the airport, Brett.
Shep, U.S. tanks are rolling in to Saddam International Airport right now, and as we take a live look on the video phone right there, we can see a tank. We understand that is right on the outskirts of the airport. We're told from ground reports that U.S. forces are all over the airport and that the airport is now in U.S. hands. No official confirmation here from the Pentagon or Central Command on that fact, but the reports are coming hot and heavy from U.S. commanders on the ground that is in fact the ground truth. As the camera pans around there, we can tell you that there have been a number of reports of Iraqi soldiers' bodies littering the streets and area around the airport, as well as burned out tanks and armored vehicles from the Iraqi forces that were putting up a fight, the regular army fighting that had been going on at Saddam International. This is very important in that this is a short drive from downtown Baghdad. We're told that the runways are still intact, that they were not bombed, as opposed to other airfields across the country. They were left intact in order to get U.S. and coalition planes eventually into that airport as soon as possible. Now, we can also tell you that the Iraqi Republican Guard continues to still be pounded from the air. A number of the divisions across Baghdad, the Adnan Division and the Al-Nida Division, are now moving, according to senior defense officials, to the eastern and western sections, the outskirts of Baghdad. Shep, let's go back to you for some breaking news.
Yeah, Brett, our Sky reporter is on the ground at the airport, and I want to listen in to his report now, please.
Have been ridded of any Iraqi occupiers who might be there.
Colin, any airport is going to be strategically important. Does this action this morning mark the beginning of the battle for Baghdad?
Quite possibly. It's interesting though, Simon, when I was talking to one of the colonels here yesterday and saying to him, look, what do you do when you get Baghdad? How are you going to use it as a bridgehead from which to mount operations into the city, the sort of street-to-street fighting, house cleansing that some people have been predicting will happen? He said quite candidly that in a sense they had a plan to deal to reach Baghdad International Airport, but beyond that point they were in the dark really. They thought that by the time they got to the airport that the regime would have toppled and they'd be using this infrastructure here. Let's just, while I'm talking, we can just show you some more smoke coming from the right-hand side there of the two main hangars. But yes, the impression was certainly that the airport would be used for humanitarian airlifts, to bring in extra troops, to take out wounded troops, to take out troops who needed relieving. And also, obviously, there's a huge propaganda value, a huge psychological impact to be had from seizing something so clearly linked with this beleaguered Saddam Hussein regime. It's even named after him. But the sense of what they're going to do with it now, well, they can certainly base Apache attack helicopters here. That would mean their flying time to and from targets in Baghdad would be much reduced. But it's by no means the end of the story that some people were expecting. Now, I have to say, Simon, the way we rolled through from the Euphrates River yesterday, the number of surrendering Iraqis, the number of discarded uniforms, boots and helmets that we saw, the number of waving Iraqi civilians giving thumbs up and smiles to us indicates that there is certainly a considerable amount of goodwill awaiting the Americans, though that's obviously not going to be universal.
Well, obviously the question being asked is where is the Republican Guard at the moment, isn't it, Colin? We're going to be talking to you later on this morning. For now, Colin Brazier at Saddam International Airport in Baghdad.
And there you go, Colin Brazier of our sister network Sky News, who is live at the airport inside Saddam Hussein's Iraq, and you saw the pictures there burning in the background, the smoke rising over Saddam International Airport, the seizing of the runways there. No coalition, no Saddam troops there to speak of whatsoever. And as we re-rack some of that tape, Bret Baier at the Pentagon, what a development.
Really is, Shep. You know, originally we heard there were elements of 4 regular Iraqi army troops, 4 divisions in and around the airport. We were getting word on the ground that initially troops were controlling just a part of it. You know, it's a massive complex, we're told. There were bunkers actually hit over the past 24 hours on one side of the airport. And control room, do we still have that post-strike image from the Pentagon briefing today? We can show you what that looked like with the arrows pointing to the places where the precision-guided bombs hit. Shown here at the Pentagon briefing, you can see all of those blue arrows right there. These were bunkers and barracks at the airport itself. They were hit. That is the pre-strike image, I believe, and the next one, if you scroll down, it will be the post-strike image as all of the precision-guided bombs hit their targets in and around that area, taking out a lot of the resistance at the airport at that time. Now, we can tell you that there wasn't a lot of resistance as troops first made their way to the airport, but there's some back and forth here at the Pentagon and Central Command whether it was actually in U.S. hands. But now, coalition and U.S. hands, of course. Now that is clear. Tanks there. We're told that the 82nd Airborne Division from the U.S. Army and the 101st Airborne will be setting up shop there, essentially securing that entire airport. Understand that this is a short drive from downtown Baghdad, so this is a key development tonight. But it is also important to note that defense officials are being very cautious in how they are playing this, how they are describing this, because they still believe this is not the end of the war. We heard from Chairman of the Joint Chiefs, General Richard Myers, in an exclusive interview on Hannity and Combs tonight. And if we have this soundbite still, control room, we would like to hear from him, as he says this is not really anywhere near the end of the war.
That there are still a lot of tough fights ahead, that this is, nobody should be euphoric, that now that we're on the edge of Baghdad, that this thing is about over. That's not true. There are other areas in that country that the enemy still controls, to include Baghdad. And this is no time for anybody to take a deep breath and think that we've reached some sort of place where we can now think that it's all downhill. I don't believe that at all. I think it's going to be very tough.
Now, defense officials are saying covert operations are continuing all around Baghdad as well. Today, CENTCOM released this video. This is of a special operations mission landing at one of Saddam Hussein's lakefront palaces, really to the north and west of Baghdad. You can see this helicopter. That's an MH-60. The special ops troops breaking into this palace, securing hallway to hallway. Saddam Hussein and his sons were known to use this place. They weren't there at this time. We're told some documents were recovered. CENTCOM giving this video today, they say, as an example of their ability to operate covertly throughout the area, even in a place as protected as one of Saddam Hussein's many palaces. So, why is that important? Senior defense officials tell us that this is likely what we are going to see, actually not see, because it will be covert as troops continue to circle Baghdad. We'll see a lot of these, or hear about a lot of these images and special ops missions taking out certain targets. Chet?
All right, Bret Baier live at the Pentagon. Bret, stick around a second. This is the picture of the night. It is exclusive to Fox News, and it is live of the airport, Saddam Hussein International Airport, and that was it. A shot that breaks up from time to time, of course, but now some astounding pictures coming in now off that same feed. These are Iraqi civilians, it's our understanding. This is a tape playback from just a short time ago of people who had been captured there or surrendered there at the airport. Surrenders said to have been plentiful from numerous sources, as we've been reading throughout the night. This particular dispatch from this airport at which you are looking live right now, saying U.S. forces have fanned out around the perimeter of Saddam International Airport outside Baghdad and throughout the center of the facility. That, according to a correspondent on the ground named Luke Baker, who works at the moment for Reuters. and U.S. military sources indicated that the U.S. troops had the airport in their grasp after heavy ground fighting and a night of aerial bombardment. A quote here, "They are everywhere," meaning inside the airport. And that's the scene live over the city of Baghdad itself, a familiar circle in recent days. A hazy morning, it would appear. It's what's expected to be a quite hot day, the holy day in Baghdad this Friday, and certainly a new day has dawned. I want to bring in Major Bob Bevilacqua, who's standing by with us in our Washington newsroom. And Bob, as we continue to watch these live pictures of an airport with a column of smoke and the entire thing taken, I wonder how many people, even at the highest levels of the Pentagon, thought that taking this airport would be such a quick matter.
Shep, I'm not sure, but I'll tell you, every time I've held my breath in anticipation of an operation or us getting closer to Baghdad, I seem to be able to let it out with some ease. The fact that we're moving as fast as we're moving is one thing, but the fact that we're killing and capturing and destroying Iraqi people, their vehicles, on the military side of the house, is really kind of astounding. And I keep waiting for the secret weapon, you know. The weapons of mass destruction is going to be released against us, or the Fedayeen's going to try some type of new attack. And every time it seems like it fails, and we get a little bit closer and things seem to be going well, which is why we need to be cautious, and we need to remember that the hardest part is yet to come. And I think the chairman touched on that quite well. And if he's reserved about it, I'm going to do the same thing. And I'll tell you that so far so good, but we have got a huge pizza in front of us, and we're just taking a bite out of one slice.
Indeed. Well said. Bob Bevilacqua live in Washington. Okay, this is certainly the picture of the night thus far as the smoke rises over Saddam International Airport. You've been sending a lot of emails about renaming the thing. We'll talk about that coming up. We've also just hooked up with our correspondent Rick Leventhal, who you know has been on the road and I'm guessing has a destination in mind somewhere near here. We'll speak live with him next and take your emails and questions for our embedded reporters. Fox Report at foxnews.com. This is our 24/7 live coverage of the war to liberate Iraq.
A definite edge. Cadillac CTS. Breakthrough.
My mother taught me to look at art and color. So when she was losing her sight to macular degeneration, we were both devastated.
Bausch & Lomb introduces PreserVision, the one and only eye health vitamin formula clinically proven effective by the National Institutes of Health.
Now when I look in her eyes, I see hope.
Ask your eye doctor about PreserVision from Bausch & Lomb. For 150 years, perfecting vision, enhancing life.
Now, non-drowsy allergy medicine you can take right when you need it. Alavert. It starts dissolving the instant it touches your tongue without water. So you can take Alavert wherever you are for non-drowsy relief. New Alavert. Allergy medicine right when you need it, wherever you are.
How do you invest to help secure your future? You start with your dreams. And Edward Jones.
My life, my world, it all begins with a dream.
Edward Jones.
It's 16 minutes past 8 a.m. and you are looking live. Baghdad. A haze in the night sky, or the morning sky, and most likely some smoke there as well. And live to Saddam International Airport, where right now the smoke rises over that particular facility that has been taken over by coalition forces. Taken over in not a matter of days, but a matter of hours. During my 3 o'clock broadcast Eastern Time this afternoon, we were discussing what felt like to the first correspondent on the ground the takeover of that airport, 3 o'clock, just 8 hours ago. And yet there was more fighting to be done. The fighting continued throughout the afternoon. And now as the sun rises in Baghdad, the fighting at that airport appears, at least for now, to be over. and it's in coalition hands. Our correspondent Rick Leventhal, as you know, has been on the road for the better part of 2 weeks, if not just a little bit longer, traveling with the military. He's been traveling over the last few hours, it's my understanding. Rick, good morning. What do you know?
Shepard, we left our assembly area at about 11:30 p.m. local time last night. We've been on the road ever since, right through dawn this morning. We crossed the Tigris River, and we have just passed a very large contingent of Marines from a number of units, a couple divisions. They're staging along a highway that we're traveling on. Some of them just waking up, shaving, getting ready for more travel today. We've passed a number of blown up anti-aircraft Iraqi weapons. We saw a large contingent of Iraqi enemy prisoners of war in the backs of 5- and 7-ton Marine vehicles, and also what appeared to be some sort of makeshift Iraqi prison camp along the side of the road. A lot of evidence of recent fighting. And we are continuing to roll as I speak. As I've popped out the back hatch of our light armored vehicle, we're traveling down the road, heading north towards Baghdad, Shepard.
Rick, what in the way of resistance?
In the way of?
Resistance along the way?
We have not seen any resistance today. We have seen evidence of prior resistance, but a tremendous amount of resources, as I mentioned, along the roadside. It appears that any resistance that was here has been squashed. We have seen a lot of locals, a lot of Iraqis, civilians, some of them just apparently on their way to work. Many of them waving at us, giving us peace signs, victory signs. A lot of smiles out here, and so smiles for us too. The captain in our vehicle put a Fox News sticker on the side of the light armored vehicle, and as we passed by a lot of these Marines, they were cheering and waving at us, and grateful to see the Foxes on the scene here.
Rick, I got to get a commercial break in here. Unfortunately, I'm going to get right back to you live along the road and tell you about the rest of the correspondence that we've been getting from the reporters in the field. Also, our correspondent Greg Kelly. We're getting his live camera up, and there it is. We'll hear more from him in just a minute on Fox News Live.
It was not my dream to realize this day. The day a father watched his daughter start at Juilliard. But I embraced that dream with unwavering attention and made it my own, because that was the dream of my client. And that's what I do at Morgan Stanley, one client at a time.
The nation's top critics agree. There has never been a more important motion picture that every American must see.
There's a war on. People are dying every day.
Newsweek declares The Quiet American couldn't seem more timely. And Time magazine adds it dares to pose questions with no easy answer. 4 stars, an instant classic.
It's not that easy to remain uninvolved.
Michael Caine, Brendan Fraser.
In a war, you use the tools you've got.
In the meantime, even more people must die.
The Quiet American, rated R, now in theaters.
During cancer treatment, Elizabeth could only watch from the sidelines. Today, her cancer is in remission, and she's ready to play.
Elizabeth is one of millions of children with hope because of Children's Miracle Network. We are the alliance of premier children's hospitals dedicated to serving all children. Your support can make miracles happen.
These are the latest pictures of tanks moving on Saddam International Airport just a short time ago. Only very recently did the first pictures begin to come out of this area, but we know that the tanks have been on the move for at least the past 9 or 10 hours. That airport now in coalition control. Our correspondent Rick Leventhal, and there is the airport as smoke rises above it, the airport right there. And Rick, we have gotten numerous dispatches from numerous correspondents traveling your route all up and down that road from 80 miles away from the Capitol all the way to the airport. The exact same story. No resistance, plenty of evidence of previous resistance, but a clean, clear highway for coalition forces to move north. Was that a surprise?
I don't know if it's a surprise. In fact, it's tough to say because there could well be resistance up ahead without going into too much detail. There has not been any so far today, and that's always a good thing, but that doesn't mean there won't be down the road.
Has word reached all of you and yours there that the airport is now in the control of the coalition?
I'm hearing it from you for the first time, Shepard, and it's obviously that's big news. You know, and these targets continue to fall, these objectives continue to be reached. It's all pointing to one obvious conclusion.
Rick, you said you've been traveling for many, many hours. Can you give us an idea of how fast you guys go and what the progress is like? Is it stop and start, or here we go?
Quite often, you know, these vehicles can travel up to 60, 70 miles an hour, but quite often we're crawling along. Right now, I'd say we're doing about 15, 20 miles an hour, and that's not because we can't go faster. It's just because we're in a long convoy of vehicles, and at times we need to slow down for security reasons. You know, we're in this light armored vehicle. It has a turret on top and a big gun there, and they consistently are searching from side to side to make sure that there are no threats, even when there are other Marines in the area. We had to stop overnight, middle of the night, to refuel. It was a very sort of eerie scene. Just pulled off to the side of the road in a long line of vehicles pulling up to a fuel truck and topping off our tanks and then continuing on down the road in pitch black. It's a long journey and there are delays. Sometimes we'll stop to review maps. The platoon leaders will need to go over maps because the directions consistently change. Even the plans they had last night on how to proceed along this route have changed this morning. So they're making different turns than they had thought they would be making when we set out on this journey.
Are you vastly closer to the capital city than you were the day before, or is yours a different sort of route?
Well, we're going. We're considerably closer. And we will be remaining close to some pretty heavy fighting forces, providing security for those forces. And beyond that, you know, I just have to be vague, Shepard. I'm sorry. Suffice it to say that we are, though, moving much closer to the capital city.
Do you have an idea of how much longer you'll be in forward progress, or no?
Yeah, well, believe it or not, we could be on the road all day and all into the night, just because of the way we're going and the things we have to do along the way. We could be in this vehicle on the road until, I don't know, dawn tomorrow perhaps.
And that, considering the fact that it's 8:30 in the morning there, means, wow, Rick's in for some dead end ahead. Rick, we're looking at pictures that came in just a short time ago, and I want to paint you whatever kind of picture I can of them. Imagine a kind of hazy day, a large blue billboard with Saddam Hussein standing there with his arm out, a painting sort of billboard, not a photograph. It's at the entrance to Saddam International Airport, and just below it, two coalition forces are taking what appears to be an Iraqi civilian, maybe an Iraqi troop dressed as a civilian. They're patting him down. His hands are over his head. The airport has fallen in short order, and it could, at some point at least, become certainly an airport for the coalition, if not a base for the coalition. And this thing is moving along, for the moment at least, at an astounding pace.
Yeah, and that won't be the only air base that's functioning now for the coalition forces. We know of at least two others that have been established or are being established. And obviously that's important, not just to bring in troops, but to bring in more supplies, to bring in extra food and water and ammo and fuel, and to move assets in and out. We are continuing to roll. We are continuing to see civilians out here. I just saw, believe it or not, an ambulance drive by, an Iraqi ambulance with its lights flashing, but there is very little traffic on the roads. An occasional taxi, but most of the people we're seeing are on foot, many of them wearing those traditional robes and headdress, walking. To where, I have no idea, because the buildings are few and far between where we are right now.
Rick Leventhal, stay with us if you can. Our Greg Kelly is up on his video phone. He's been along the road to Baghdad for vagueness' sake. Greg, tell us what you know.
Well, Shep, we are in Greater Baghdad. We can tell you that. We are very, very close. Remember, shortly after you went off the air last night, we crossed over the Euphrates into really Saddam Hussein's backyard, and it was a very difficult trek getting here as close as we are to Baghdad. We had a convoy about 1,000 vehicles long, and for about 3 to 5 hours, the convoy was heavily engaged with the enemy. First, we saw Al-Quds and Fedayeen coming at us with those AK-47s and rocket-propelled grenades. And then it was time for the Republican Guard. They had their signature green uniform with the red triangle. Hundreds, perhaps thousands of Republican Guard putting up a rather stiff fight from entrenched positions on either side of the road. It was a dicey time for us driving in a soft vehicle, what they say, just an ordinary Humvee, without a weapon on top and without a tactical radio inside to know exactly what was going on. But the Bradley behind us was firing almost the entire way. So was the M113 in front of us firing the entire way. At the end of the day, when we finally secured the objective where we're located right now, it was a successful day, according to commanders. They did lose one M1 tank. It was disabled after a barrage of RPGs came down on it. One soldier was killed in the fighting. One U.S. soldier was killed in the fighting. But they point out that about roughly 30 T-72 Soviet-built tanks of the Iraqis were destroyed in the fighting. Also, they killed hundreds, perhaps more than 1,000 Iraqi soldiers along that route. Also, they took out scores of their small artillery sites, as well as their recoilless rifles. We saw the carnage really all the way from the Euphrates to this position, which is extremely close to Baghdad. What do we do now? Do we continue to pursue Republican Guard units? Do we move into Baghdad? Do we stay here? We don't know, and it is not one of those situations where, you know, we know and we can't tell you. We don't know what the next step is. Commanders are conferring with division, and we'll see what happens next. Shepard?
Greg, great stuff. We've been hearing from the Pentagon reports that so many of the forces now are in Greater Baghdad, and the Pentagon describes the words Greater Baghdad as being able to see the skyline. Is that what you mean, too?
I can see the infrastructure of Baghdad. Now, I can't see skyscrapers from where I am right now. There's a pretty significant tree line, but let's say I were in Queens. There are parts of Queens where you can't see Manhattan from. You know what I mean? I can't see the skyline from right here. If I went up maybe 50 feet or so, might have a better vantage point. But we're extremely close, and we're sticking to that phrase, Greater Baghdad, for vagueness purposes, as you mentioned.
Fair enough. I wonder if word of the fall of the airport to the coalition has reached the folks there.
Absolutely. 1st Brigade secured that airport. 1st Brigade is part of the 3rd Infantry Division, and that was monitored here throughout yesterday and the evening and early this morning. And some of the commanders who were intimately involved in the planning of that takedown. It could have been our operation, really, at one point, but they know and they're relieved, and that is certainly a major target or strategic point that's now in our possession.
Greg, I want to tell you, Colin Brazier of our sister network, Sky News in Great Britain, is at the airport or just outside the airport, and he's about to do a report. And when it begins, I may have to enter. There he is. He's about to do a report for Sky News, and when he does, I may have to interrupt you because we really want to hear from him about the details there at the airport. But before then, you mentioned the destruction of so much of the Iraqi equipment and the death of so many of the Iraqi troops. How much of that did you see, if not the happening, then the aftermath, and can you describe for us what you witnessed?
Shep, we saw it. We saw it all. We saw Iraqis getting killed, unfortunately. I mean, it's an unfortunate thing to witness. It's a necessary thing to happen, I guess. But we saw it all. We saw soldiers going down. We saw bodies that we didn't see their actual death. But we saw the aftermath.
I want to get back to that point, and I do apologize, but like I said, Colin Brazier at the airport. I'll be right back.
Let's just show you the airport complex, some of the hangars you can see. On the civilian side, of Saddam International Airport, or Baghdad International Airport, as the U.S. Army hopes to rename it. This is an important psychological blow for the beleaguered Saddam Hussein regime, and also obviously an important bridgehead for the Americans. They'll quite potentially be able to use, you probably hear some artillery going off there in the background, they'll be able to use this airport, it's hoped, as a bridgehead effectively to ferry in supplies and possibly mount missions by Apache Longbow helicopters, which would be able to reach targets in central Baghdad in much quicker order than they have hitherto been able to. Let's just talk briefly, if we can, to Colonel Will Grimsley, who's the commanding officer of the 1st Brigade of the 3rd Infantry Division, whose troops have had the honour, really, Colonel, of taking such an important objective.
Yeah, absolutely. Did great. Moved up here, started in daylight, but ended up doing a night attack, zero elimination, zero natural elimination, and came in here, busted the hole in the wall there behind you, and assaulted through very quickly, established a foothold, and we've got great control here thus far.
Give us a sense of the resistance you've had, Colonel.
Well, it was almost spooky here last night because there was virtually nothing. It was quiet, it was very dark, and we came through, we occupied positions, we used a lot of air, and we had the UAV up as well, and just saw nothing. And then, as you are aware, right around first light this morning, it was as if they woke up and looked around and said, holy cow, where all these Americans come from? And so we've been in fighting with pockets of resistance. We're clearing, seizing pieces of terrain now and clearing buildings now, rooting out Republican Guards, Special Republican Guards, Iraqi Special Forces.
You mentioned to me that there are tunnel complexes here, some which run to presidential palaces, some which run to the city center.
Right. We know there are underground complexes here. There are 2 presidential palaces on the environs here of the airport, both on the east side. One's a new one, one's an older one. And we believe that there are some that also run down to the center along the Tigris to what was, I guess, the center of power there until it was destroyed. And so we'll have to get in and do that too, but we know where they are.
Can you give us a sense of the casualties taken, of the human cost of all this?
On his side, the human cost is high, and it's because they continue to resist, and I would say somewhat futilely, and you see it. Although we are able to convince many of them through the use of the psychological operations broadcast to surrender, and that's the right answer. I had 2 of my soldiers wounded this morning, but that's it thus far.
Now, we've been watching as this wreath of smoke curls over the airport. We understand this may be the first trench fires that have been lit, perhaps to obscure an advance, a counterattack by Iraqi forces, possibly, but something to obscure your efforts.
Yeah, I had not heard that, but certainly it could be. But as you see, we attacked in zero alone last night, but we can see and fight in the night.
It's been an extraordinary advance over the last 24 hours or so. When we came over the Euphrates, they tried to blow up the bridge. You managed to get your troops across. We saw lots of prisoners of war then. But what we didn't see was wide-scale resistance, apparently, by the Republican Guard. Where are they?
Well, it appears that he's learned the lessons of many other adversaries, as well as his own experience fighting us, and he dispersed his forces and in an effort to try and use them and perhaps try and save them. Although we've been able to find many of them. In fact, we found many tanks and fighting vehicles abandoned, and that's okay too, because that's one less we have to fight. So we'll disable it and move on. But it appears that there isn't much coherent or cogent defense or reason going on here.
I know this is a sprawling complex. There's a military side of the airport which we're on now. There's a civilian side. As a percentage, how much of Baghdad International's real estate does the American Army now own?
I would say that we're in the 75% range here, and the 25% that we don't own is purposeful, because we want to take care of what we got and secure it and get it shored up, and then we'll start clearing out the rest of it. Okay.
Colonel, thank you very much indeed for sparing the time this morning. I know you've not had much sleep, but thank you again. Thank you very much. There we are, Simon. That's literally the latest. We have 75% of the airport apparently now under American military control.
Colin Brazier of our sister network Sky News in the United Kingdom reporting that in fact, let's listen now. I know he's answering questions.
That's right. This was always the objective for the Americans. Right from the very beginning, they have in the military jargon got a base plan, and their base plan was always to go via Samawa, Najaf, round Skirt, Kabbalah with the minimum amount of damage to those important Shia Muslim sites, and then get to the airport as quickly as possible. But the feeling was the expectation and the hope was that by the time they got to Baghdad International, the regime perhaps might have fallen. So it's a different scenario that now presents itself. What happens in terms of future operations from here is a moot point, really. Obviously, this is a bridgehead which can be and will be an important asset in terms of bringing in men, bringing in materiel by the Americans in terms of tackling what Iraqi resistance remains within the city. If it comes to street fighting, if that's what happens, this will be an important military asset. But quite what the plan is from here is unclear. What we do know, and what we've been talking about for the past 3 weeks in the desert, Simon, privately, is when we get to Baghdad International Airport. And what there's been little discussion of is what comes after that. That's for higher authorities to decide.
Colin Brazier of Sky News, and I don't know about you, but I thought one of the most interesting things he just said was they fought throughout the night. They battled throughout the darkness in a pitch-black city or outside a pitch-black city. And as the sun rose this morning over Baghdad, it seemed to the colonel there that the folks who once controlled that airport sat up, looked around, and said, where did all these Americans come from? And now, according to Colin Brazier's reporting, 75% of Baghdad International is in the control now of the American military. I want to go back to Rick Leventhal, I believe, who is on the, Brett Baer, I'm sorry, Brett Baer at the Pentagon for us. Brett, that's some news.
Shep, I tell you what, it is amazing to hear the commander on the ground of that brigade give us that information. It's like a treasure trove, and I was sitting here scribbling all of the things he was saying. You know, we run the halls here trying to get ground truth, but here this guy just laid it all out for us. I mean, I just want to go through some of the things he said there. They went into this airport, Saddam International Airport, in the middle of the night. He said no illumination, which means they didn't put up any illumination, and there was no natural illumination. You know, the new moon started just a couple of days ago, so it is very dark at night inside Iraq. He said there was attack helicopters, there was air cover, likely Apache helicopters. There were also UAVs, unmanned aerial vehicles, providing a scope of the entire airport, a look around to see the enemy. He said it was essentially abandoned. And then in the morning, as you mentioned, it was like, according to him, the Iraqis woke up and said, holy cow, how did all these Americans get here? Now, there was some heavy fighting, and that explains what we were hearing at the Pentagon. At first, there were a lot of reports that the airport had already gone down, and then there was some skepticism here from Pentagon officials saying, we don't have that yet, we can't confirm that yet. And at this point, they still can't officially confirm it. Now, we're hearing from that commander on the ground that he says 75% of the airport is officially in their control, although he sounds confident that if and when they want to move forward with the other part, that they can clear it out. He also described the forces, the Iraqi Republican Guard forces, as dispersed, and they were finding many tanks and fighting vehicles abandoned. That is important because we are not seeing a lot of resistance in the outskirts of Baghdad. We hear here at the Pentagon from senior defense officials that two key Iraqi Republican Guard divisions, the Adnan Division in the west and the Al-Nida Division in the east, have essentially dispersed, trying to go to areas where they won't be picked off, although the air campaign continues to be extremely heavy. Even at this hour, the U.S. is flying day and night missions over Baghdad in kill boxes, essentially. And if they move, they are taken out once they're identified by fighter jets and bombers over Baghdad. So it's fascinating to hear the ground truth from the commander there and match it to what we were hearing throughout the day, real time. It spells out a lot for me.
Yeah, it spells out a lot for a lot of us. Brett, thanks very much. Live at the Pentagon. We'll get back to Brett for updates, and I sure do appreciate Brett staying around. One of the interesting things was there that they didn't know if they thought maybe the regime would have fallen by the time they got to Baghdad. You heard from the colonel there and the reporter Colin Brazier that they don't really have a plan for after Baghdad, and you wonder how much of a plan the regime had. I mean, for the airport, you wonder how much of a plan the regime had for after the falling of that airport and seeing this massive bombardment and the airport taken over, and you wonder if this couldn't be the beginning of something very important for coalition forces. I am told that the train to Baghdad is about to leave from Lieutenant Colonel Oliver North's position. He's up live with us now on the video phone somewhere outside of the capital city somewhere. Hello, Ollie.
Shepard, we're here with the 1st Marine Expeditionary Force, the 2nd Tank Battalion, arrayed behind me is about to launch off on the attack after a night of brutal pounding on the eastern gates of Baghdad. The reports you've been getting from the airport from the southwest is only one of 3 prongs headed for the heart of Saddam Hussein's capital. I have with me the air crews, those who have been flying the casualty evacuation missions from HMM 268, the Red Dragons, who have been literally flying around the clock. We arrived at this landing zone late last night using night vision goggles. It turns out this landing zone, a schoolyard, had been turned into a military headquarters for Saddam Hussein. Here among the things that Major Harris has, a wonderful picture of none other than Saddam Hussein. He also has, hold up that gas mask because I think this is very impressive. Remember, this is the military that wasn't going and didn't have any of those weapons of mass destruction. There is an Iraqi gas mask. The gas mask pouch is below it. And right next to it, Major Harris has the uniform that the Iraqi soldier disposed of. Turns out that this is a non-commissioned officer's uniform. You can tell by the epaulets. And this uniform has been disposed of, and it's more than likely that this is one of the 50 enemy prisoners of war who are now standing, being guarded by military policemen about 100 yards from where we stand. And if we've got time, Shep, I want to give a chance to have the doc show some of this other medical equipment. These are one of the corpsmen that fly on these missions. Here is saline solution. What's this other one?
The dextrose injection. Some of the IV fluids that we found in the schoolhouse, along with other medical gear.
Same kind of stuff we use, the same stuff that you used to save the lives of American Marines. And we've also got atropine injectors. All this equipment was either made in Iraq or made in Jordan, though we've picked up other equipment made in France, of all places. And one last thing, Shepard, we've got a young guy who's going to celebrate his birthday in a truly unique sort of way. Matt, step up here. Tell us what your name is.
Matt Schmall, HM3, U.S. Navy.
And a corpsman.
Yes, sir.
Save the lives of U.S. Marines.
Yes, sir.
Your first day in Iraq.
Yes, sir.
And happy birthday.
Thank you, sir.
What a great way to celebrate.
Outstanding, sir.
Shepard, back to you up there in New York.
Ollie North. It's always good to check in with you, Ollie. Thank you very much. Certainly do appreciate it. This has become sort of commonplace, hasn't it? Because we've been sitting here doing this for 2 weeks. There's nothing commonplace about this. Think of what we are all witnessing. We've just gone to Colonel Oliver North there with some of the bravest and the finest. We've just watched as we've worked our way toward Baghdad. The Pentagon has watched only on Fox, along with us, as the interview happened with the 3rd Infantry Division, 1st Brigade, the Commander Wilkins, whose name I've just gotten, of the 3rd Infantry, 1st Brigade, who led the assault on the airport, and the first-hand report came to you at the same time it came over the television to the Pentagon. What an astounding vision this has been of at least what has been the beginning of this war. And watching it all along firsthand has been our own Marine, Greg Kelly, who's traveling with the Army. Don't get into it. Greg, hearing all of this must be something else for you, too, even out there. I know you're on the road shortly. Do you know what that road leads to?
Actually, we do not. We are in Greater Baghdad. That was our objective for a long time. Planners talking about getting to this point for months. Beyond this, we're not exactly sure what happens next. It's not one of those situations where we know, we can't tell you and all that stuff. We really don't know. We don't know if we pursue Republican Guard units wherever they may be, north, south, east, west. Do we push into Baghdad or do we stay here? Looks like our brigade commanders and division commanders are getting that squared away. For now, they are breathing a bit of a sigh of relief that that airport has been secured by our sister brigade, 1st Brigade, and also a sigh of relief that just about everybody made it here safely. We did lose one soldier here yesterday. You asked about the fighting along the way. Fox News saw it all. Some of those pictures were taken live. We saw an M1 tank on fire, partially disabled, but a kind of a scary scene. We saw incoming fire from small arms right off of our left side. We saw Iraqis getting shot by Bradley fighting vehicles. We saw a suicide vehicle, really no other to describe it, that was coming right at the side of an armored vehicle, get taken out by, again, a Bradley fighting vehicle. It was a full day of fighting, and the 2nd Brigade considers themselves very lucky that there weren't more substantial losses, although there is a good deal of grief over that one soldier who was killed in the action. They're calling it a success. Again, about roughly 30 T-72 Russian-made tanks were destroyed in yesterday's fighting. Right now, we're just standing by. We're in Greater Baghdad. Could we be going deeper? Could we be going somewhere else? We'll tell you when we can. Shepard?
What is your function at that, not yours, but those with whom you travel? What is their function at this particular place? Security, or how would you describe it?
Well, security is a big, big priority because commanders tell us there are still a lot of bad guys in this area. But this is a point from which we have positional advantage, they say. We have, or the 2nd Brigade has options on what to do next. Security is pretty much job one. Force protection, making sure that people here at this camp, a rather hastily set up camp, are safe. And secondly, to be able to project force from here and coordinate the projection of force from other units. So for now, we're holding this position, and the commanders are trying to figure out what is actually going to happen next. Baghdad, Republican Guard, both. There are a lot of things that can happen because if you see where we are on a map, we do have a lot of options. This is a pretty good piece of dirt to be holding right now. We'll tell you, though, that sometimes it doesn't feel totally secure. You hear sporadic gunfire. We heard it all night long. We heard the battle for the airport. We hear airplanes flying overhead. Basically, the phrase you hear most around here is, what was that? People constantly asking, what was that? Because there's always some noise in the area. Shepard?
Wow, Greg Kelly with amazing stories to tell. I can't wait to read the book, my friend. We'll get back to Greg. Greg, if you could stay up with us, we'd really appreciate it. I want to tell you about a couple of the questions that are coming in, and this is one that is all over the place after all these days of people saying, this isn't going right, look how this plan is stalled, look how everything is not working, look at the supply lines breaking down, are we, is this plan awful? Now the question by the hundreds from you by email tonight is, this seems so easy, could this be a trap? What happened to all those soldiers? Have they gone into Baghdad? Does destruction await us with weapons of mass destruction? We'll be speaking with our experts on that. We'll also go back to Rick Leventhal, who is still on the road en route to destination, well, known, but specifically unknown. And we're also going to talk about this airport. And from you, I have hundreds of emails throughout the night about what to rename this airport. Many of you seem to think that the renaming of this thing should happen quite quickly. You may have heard in Colin Brazier's report a short time ago about thoughts of renaming that thing. We'll talk about all of that on the night when, or the morning in Baghdad, where 75% of Saddam's airport has been taken. 24/7 live coverage from Fox continues next.
Real journalism, fair and balanced. Fox News Channel.
Hey, guys. Hey. Did you see my last prank?
Oh, no. We should download it from Oxygen.com. Yeah, before we go back on set.
Good thing we have Comcast high-speed internet. You know, we're always connected, so we never have to wait for dial-up. Ooh, look, there I am now.
Oh, wow. That was fast. That was fast.
Mm-hmm.
Now you can be a girl behaving badly in Miami Beach. Enter for a chance to win a trip for 4 in the Girls Behaving Badly Prank Across America sweepstakes. Enter now at Oxygen.com and keep watching Oxygen on Comcast.
You know when you're having a baby and everyone says it'll change your life, and you say, I know.
You don't know.
Life is full of surprises.
Hey, check this out. She's not supposed to roll over till next month, and she just rolled over.
You learn as you go.
We actually watched a movie last Friday. I'm gonna buy this.
Honey, she's 3 months old.
Yeah, but this is the bomb.
Everything we do is about connecting you to the stuff you love most. Comcast.
You want a revolution, well, you know.
And there was this one that went.
The Beatles Anthology, featuring rare or previously unseen footage of the Beatles' first recording sessions in 25 years.
Blackbird singing in the dead of night.
The Beatles Anthology 5 DVD box set for 3 easy payments of $26.98 plus $5.95 shipping and handling. Order the Beatles Anthology now and receive a free limited edition poster.
It was magical. 4 guys who really loved each other. It was pretty sensational.
This is the greatest story in rock and roll history. To order the Beatles Anthology 5 DVD box set and receive your free poster, call the number on your screen. 3 easy payments of $26.98 plus $5.95 shipping and handling. Rush delivery available. Call now.
8 minutes to midnight here in New York, 8 minutes to 9 a.m. in Baghdad and at the airport, which at latest dispatch from a senior U.S. Army officer telling Reuters just outside Baghdad now that 75% is now old news. We control the airport. That's the quote at 8 minutes to midnight in Washington. We control the airport, and we control a lot of Saddam Hussein's soldiers who have been arrested or at least taken into custody as prisoners of war or contained in some way. And as we watch this, there are 3 different stories I want to tell you tonight. One of them is from the Boston Globe, tomorrow morning's edition of the Boston Globe, and the story of Iraqi deserters. Oh my, these are live pictures with the white flag in the air on a bridge that we believe to be, actually I don't know exactly where this is, except to say to you that it is somewhere in Baghdad. Is that the understanding of the location of this camera, in Baghdad? This is actually Greg Kelly's camera in Metropolitan, or in Greater Baghdad, as he put it. Greg Kelly, what a sight. Describe what you're seeing.
Shepard, it is quite a sight, but, you know, it's hard to say whether these guys are actually surrendering or they just want to pass without being harassed or being shot. Now, we've seen that before. They just kind of walk by, carry a white flag with their hands in the air, so they know they don't mean hostile intent. Doesn't necessarily mean they intend to surrender or go into American custody. Quite frankly, I can tell you this, the 2nd Brigade really doesn't need any more enemy prisoners of war. They've got a lot. They've got probably 100 that they took yesterday. These guys are logistical burdens. It's a great sign, and they'd rather have more EPWs than not, but it can be a bit of a chore. Now, these guys are coming by. Everyone is a little bit alert, on their guard because, you know, there could be a sabotage situation or something like that. We've heard of reports of that happening before. Somebody's trying to surrender and whips out an AK-47 from under their clothing. These guys are making progress and going through our position, and everyone is just a little bit leery, some waving, but everyone kind of anxious to see these guys go through. It does not look like that we're taking these guys into our custody.
Yeah, Greg,
Shepard.
you know, it's hard to tell on this video phone, but it looked as if there was some degree of celebration going on there. Is that something about the digital? How did you see it?
There wasn't an air of celebration. There were just a lot of hands high in the air, and those occasional white flags. They seem intent on showing us their hands, so we know or feel like they're not going to reach for a weapon, that they truly don't mean us any hostile intent. And they're walking at a fairly rapid clip, like they want to move on through. We do own a pretty big chunk of land. Some of these people still want to go about their business, and they don't want to get shot. So that might be what's going on right there. They're just passing through, and it's safer for them to pass through with their hands in the air and a white flag. Doesn't mean they're going to become prisoners of war or official capitulators, but it could mean, and it looks like it has meant, that they've been able to pass safely.
Brett Baer has a question for you. Go ahead, Brett, from the Pentagon.
Hey, Greg, great job out there. And tell Colonel Perkins and Lieutenant Colonel Wesley I said hi. Listen, I wanted to ask you, as you watch these pictures of these, it looks like guys just passing, what is the concern about chem weapons, and what MOP level are you at? And for everybody at home, MOP level is the level at which the chem bio protection they put in. Greg, what's the concern there on the ground?
We're going back and forth between MOP level 1 and 2. MOP level 1 being chemical protective suits, having the gas mask at the side. MOP level 2 is chemical protective suit, gas mask at the side. As you can see, more seemingly Iraqis who are seeming to surrender there. MOP level 2 is having the boots on. We have the gas masks ready. You know, when we hear these artillery barrages, there is a little bit of concern because that's how commanders here feel Saddam Hussein most likely would try to deliver the chemical munitions, through artillery. So when you hear enemy artillery go off, and you don't hear it that often, and when you do hear it, it's hard to tell whether it's friendly artillery or Iraqi artillery. That's when there's concern about throwing on the gas mask. Could he be sliming us, as the Army says? But we have not gone to MOP level 4.
Four MOP levels.
In the past day.
I wanted to ask you, you know, you're well within the red zone, as has been talked about, and intelligence indicating, of course, that once coalition troops passed a certain point that perhaps Iraqi troops would be authorized to use chem weapons. Is there talk about that? Is there anything on the ground as far as from the commander's point of view?
There's speculation about whether or not that order has been given to the Iraqi commanders. There is a reluctance to go to MOP level 4 if we don't have to. Put the mask on, you've already got the suit on, plus the boots and the gloves. It's very, very uncomfortable, very difficult to carry out combat operations effectively. So there is a reluctance, although there is also an acceptance that it could be necessary, and it might be necessary at any moment. You mentioned that we are well within the so-called red zone or red line. So commanders are ready. Troops here are, no one's taken off their blouses. We heard yesterday in some units they were able to take off their jackets, kind of go to MOP level 0.5, if you will. That has not happened here. We could be at MOP level 4 in a matter of seconds if the word came.
Hey, Greg, the guys on top of the vehicles here, are they just kind of keeping watch for these Iraqis walking by? And since I say that, it's probably sort of commonplace for you to be in this sort of a situation, but from 6,000 miles away to be sitting there with these military vehicles and American military personnel in the middle of this occupied area with Iraqis walking by with white flags on the end of a stick, it's an astounding picture and a first of its kind on this network.
It is astounding, and yes, you're right. I guess we have seen it before, but it is truly breathtaking when you think about it, that these pictures are being carried live. You know, you see the soldiers stretching out on the vehicles, standing up, not exactly too concerned about cover and concealment, because there's a sense here that we have taken this piece of ground. We own this immediate area. There was a lot of fighting yesterday, a lot of skirmishes even during the night. Now things are, the ops tempo has slackened a little bit. People feeling pretty secure, not taking any necessary chances. But as you can see, things are kind of relaxed in this area. They tensed up a little bit as those Iraqis were coming through. You don't know what to make of it. Should you be celebrating with them, or should you be concerned about your safety? What is their intent? What are they really up to? Those are the questions that go through the soldier's mind. But they have been escorted through the area. They're unharmed, and soldiers here are doing great, too. Jeff?
Greg Kelly live for us. Greg, it's midnight on the East Coast, 9 a.m. in Baghdad, and Fox News coverage of Operation Iraqi Freedom continues right now. Good morning from Fox News World Headquarters, where Fox News has now confirmed Saddam International Airport is now the temporary property, at least, of coalition forces. That airport taken over earlier tonight. Senior U.S. Army officer tells Reuters outside Baghdad, "We control the airport. There's still some cleanup work to be done, but the airport belongs to the coalition." A name change may soon be in order at Saddam International. The troops have the place surrounded or occupied just 10 miles from the center of Baghdad. We'll tell you about the battle for this very important strategic prize. Of course, it's morning in Baghdad. The power's out. The only light overnight coming from explosions. Allied targets pounding presidential palaces and military targets. Meantime, Baghdad could be irrelevant soon, at least as a capital city. Fox News has learned some members of the Bush administration now want to install a new temporary Iraqi government soon. Soon meaning within the next week or so, overruling Saddam Hussein even before the official fall of Baghdad. We'll tell you about possible plans for a new Iraq. It's 9 o'clock on the West Coast, midnight on the East Coast, 9 a.m. in Baghdad, and our coverage continues now. You are looking live, the scene outside Baghdad, actually in greater Baghdad, and pictures at which we've been looking for the past few minutes. These are pictures you'll see only on Fox. And Greg Kelly is watching it live. Greg, continue if you would.
Shep, it is an amazing day. Baghdad International secured 75% of it, at least, by our sister brigade, the 1st Brigade Combat Team. part of the 3rd Infantry Division. We heard the fighting pretty much all night long. We could hear it. We could see it occasionally with blasts on the horizon. It capped off our own day of serious fighting. We came across the Euphrates, 3rd Infantry Division, for the first time in big numbers, moving across the Euphrates. We are now on the west side in the very backyard of Saddam Hussein. Now, the fighting again intense, hundreds, perhaps thousands of Republican Guard coming at us through this very long, narrow convoy with AK-47s, rocket-propelled grenades. These guys, however, not fighting very effectively. Commanders here tell us they're not impressed with the Republican Guard, not impressed with how they manage their terrain, with how they employ their weapons, that these guys are not tacticians, and that their reputation might have gotten a little bit carried away. More on that in a second. From now, we're in a pretty good position to move on to Baghdad, or perhaps clean up the Republican Guard. Actually, I'm going to introduce you to somebody right now. Colonel David Perkins, you've got a pretty good idea about what comes next. First of all, you heard about 1st Brigade securing the airport. What do you know about that? And also, what do you know about what happens to us now?
Well, as you said, 1st Brigade has the airport under their control, so now we control the airport. We took this key terrain here yesterday, so we control this key piece of terrain that controls really all the traffic entering and exiting Baghdad. So this really allows us to set up a cordon around the city, and we really control what happens with regards to major movement in and out of the city. Today we're going to complete the destruction of the Medina Division, which has remnants south of it, his Republican Guard unit, and we'll continue to destroy that so it doesn't present a threat to us both either in our rear or the ability to reinforce Baghdad.
If you engage Medina today, this will be the 3rd time perhaps that you've engaged the Republican Guard. They've got a pretty solid reputation in some people's minds. What do you think of the way they fight?
Well, they're obviously not a match for the American soldier. Our guys are much better trained. Our guys actually have a much greater will to fight and much more well-equipped. The Republican Guard is very well-equipped. They are better trained than some of the Fedayeen forces that we have fought. They had T-72s yesterday that we engaged, but the Army soldiers are more than a match for them.
T-72s, I understand several dozen T-72s destroyed in yesterday's fighting, correct?
Yes, they had quite a few, obviously, as we're on the outskirts of Baghdad. This has been one of their centers of gravity, so they've brought some of their best equipment up here. But in every case, the T-72 lost the fight between either was a Bradley, a tow missile, or a tank.
I'm going to ask one more thing. We saw some Iraqis go through here before with the white flag, hands up. It looked like they were just trying to get through, not necessarily to enter American custody, but to just kind of leave unharmed. Is that you read it?
Yeah, obviously we are right here in the metropolitan area of Baghdad, and so there's a lot of civilian traffic and a lot of civilian movement, which we are taking great pains to make sure we separate it from any of the military conflict going on so that none of those people are injured or hurt, and at the same time making sure that we don't let any military activity occur in and out of Baghdad.
I think you've been a soldier for 23 years, I guess, 27, including West Point. You're in the shadow of Baghdad. You've been planning for this moment for a very long time. How do you feel personally right now that you've reached this temporary objective?
Well, this objective that we're on has been an objective that we've planned for a long time and rehearsed. And yesterday was a very long day coming up here, a very hard fight. But the soldiers did an outstanding job, and they performed exactly as we had planned, exactly as we rehearsed. There were no surprises as far as what missions they were given, and it really is pretty gratifying to see the American soldiers perform the way they did.
All right, well, congratulations on getting us this far. We're not done yet. Shepard, got anything for the Colonel?
You know what? I got to thank you for him, and I guess I'm not alone. Thanks for the great work, and thanks for the great reporting there. Give us some of those great pictures, if you would, Greg, and we'll get back to you shortly, if that's possible. In the meantime, I want to head over to Oliver North, who's traveling with the 1st Marine Expeditionary Force and has a guest of his own. Ollie, hello again.
Shepard Smith, I am with, I almost said Lance Corporal, Corporal Julian Hernandez, United States Marines. You know, Shepard, there's an axiom of war that says you have to move, shoot, and communicate. Corporal Hernandez is one of those who allows this unit to communicate even though they're moving literally nonstop. Corporal, when did you get here last night?
We got here about midnight last night, sir.
Pulled in the middle of the night, no lights.
No lights.
And found yourselves in the middle of...
looks like a schoolyard, I was told. I'm not sure.
It was a schoolyard, but it's been turned into fighting positions.
Yes, sir.
And Shepard, inside the building, here's some of what we found. This is an atropine injector kit. Now remember, this is the same Army that says they don't have weapons of mass destruction. They don't have chemical weapons. Well, the gas masks and these atropine injectors give a lie to what Saddam Hussein has been saying all along. Let me have Corporal Hernandez say hi to some folks at home.
I just want to say hello to my wife, Rebecca, my child, Monica, and my other child, Leandra, and my parents. Hi, Mom. Hi, Dad. I'll be home soon. Don't worry about me.
You will indeed. And Shepard, I'd be very surprised after the barrage this morning. It was quite an impressive barrage.
It was. I woke up to it, and I was like, holy cow. Just all over the place. It was going off. It was nice, actually.
We're about 8 miles east. Now, Greg, of course, you just talked to him. He's southwest of the city. We're 8 miles east of the city, waiting for that final mop-up of that airport, and then a three-pronged attack into the city itself. From the southwest, the south, and our attack from the east. The 2nd Tank Battalion, arrayed behind me, Shepard, is ready to go, waiting for that word to close in on Saddam Hussein's capital. Shepard?
Wow. Colonel Oliver North. Colonel, thank you very much. I've been watching live pictures come in from Sky News, one of our many video phones, which are out and about, showing us the terrain in and around Baghdad. This is just outside Baghdad. It is within a mile, even less, of the airport. And you see that building there on the right-hand side of your screen with what looks like 2 enormous doors? That's a hangar at Saddam International Airport. And look at that, without even being asked to. In they zoom. That is a hangar at Saddam International Airport, and it is completely taken over. An amazing occurrence overnight, and I loved the quote from the soldier on the ground there, from the particular man on the ground there, who was Commander Wilkins of the 3rd Infantry 1st Brigade, who led the assault on this airport, describing what it was like at sunrise as the locals woke up and asked the question, what are all these Americans doing here? I've been getting some astounding stories of desertions on the part of the Iraqi military, and there are 3 different stories I've been trying to tell for an hour and a half, and I want to try to get this in real quick from the Boston Globe tomorrow. From 2 young soldiers who deserted, quoting, "Bombs came raining down like rain. Bombs were falling like fire." He was one of 7 privates in an Iraqi infantry unit who dashed across their front lines outside the city of Mosul and Kurdish-held territory to escape the attacks. 2 16-year-olds in the Iraqi army saying, quote, "We rarely received any dinner. 3 pieces of bread a day, sometimes rice and meat for lunch, maybe soup if there was any of that. The officers lived well, but we lived poorly. They treated us badly. There was much hostility, and then until the fighting began, and then they realized we were going to be the ones who were defending them, and they treated us a little bit better." These 2 particular soldiers saying to the Boston Globe reporter, who's embedded with the military, that they were certain the death squads at the rear of their own lines would kill anyone who tried to desert into friendly territory. And quoting again, "All units have low morale, especially in the southern cities. The bombardment affects the morale even there. We had no newspapers. We had a radio with 1 station, official state Baghdad radio. It was telling us everything was normal, even though we could see that it was not. And at the end, we just hope this ends soon," said this student who was also a soldier. "We'd like to go home and live freely with our families." All of this could be taking a dramatic turn. You wonder about the death squads at the back of their units and what those death squads did to how many. And certainly part of the reason, says the administration, that this mission is underway. It's my belief that that was at Fairford RAF in Great Britain, with planes on the ground getting ready to take off. Correct me if I'm wrong in the booth, if you would. Rick Leventhal is on the line with us as well. That's actually correct. Astounding. Rick Leventhal is on the line with us. He is in the middle of what will be a 24-hour journey, it sounds, Rick?
Yeah, maybe a little less, maybe 15 to 20 hours. We're still in the back of our light armored vehicle and popped out the back hatch on a satellite phone, and we've seen some extraordinary pictures as we've traveled this road, Shepard, on our way to Baghdad or near it. We've gone through some small villages, and there were just dozens and dozens of people, locals, children and young men and a scattered few women, gathered along the road as if it were a parade going by. We're in a convoy of these light armored vehicles, a convoy of Marines rolling through town. And they stood there, and many of them smiled and waved, gave us gestures, peace signs, that sort of thing. Not all of them, but many of them were clearly happy to see us. These were not forced smiles. These were genuine, welcoming gestures, and the children especially were wonderful to see, you know, sort of running alongside our vehicle and waving at us, and Christian's in the hatch next to me with the camera, and he's videotaping them as they sort of run and wave and call out to us. Just extraordinary scenes as we travel this road. A lot of other locals in the streets trying to stop vehicles as they go by, trying to get rides to and from to work or whatever. Not many vehicles stopping, not many private vehicles on the road, period. The Marines, though, are out here in force. And one other item of note, Shepard, it's just after 8 a.m. local time, or 9 a.m. if they set the clocks ahead, and it is already getting hot.
Yeah, Rick, we're hearing that by Sunday or Monday, the Baghdad temperature will top 100 degrees Fahrenheit, and with chem suits, there are concerns. I know that, in fact, on what was Thursday there in Baghdad, 3 soldiers at least went down from heat exhaustion and were treated at 3 out of tens of thousands. Not a lot, but the temperature hasn't gone as high as it will. And in chem suits, they're certainly warning soldiers and Marines and all the rest to drink a liter of water every hour when out and about.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. It was close to 100 degrees yesterday, extremely hot. And, you know, these guys have to wear their suits. And, you know, if we were to be forced to put on our masks and take refuge in the vehicle, it would just be close to unbearable. But they say they can fight in the suits if they have to, and they're prepared to do just that.
Hey, Rick, we've talked a lot about trying not to get too gory with all of this and balancing that with telling the whole truth of the war. I'm here, Rick. Can you still hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. We're getting some interference. We pulled up next to a couple of other light armored vehicles. We got, what are you guys, 4th LAR? Yeah, 4th LAR out of Camp Pendleton, I believe. The reserve is also on the road with us, Shepard.
Yeah, what I was saying, Rick, was that we're trying to balance telling all of the story without being unnecessarily gory and graphic. With that said, Greg Kelly was telling us about his journey and some of the realities of war that he saw along the sides of the roads. And I wonder if there were moments and pictures that are still plastered on the back of your brain that would be interesting to share.
Well, certainly about 7-8 days ago, as we moved through an area south of here, we went basically through a battlefield and saw a lot of the horrors of war. Destroyed vehicles, dead Iraqi soldiers by the roadside. Today, we've seen much of the machinery that's been broken down and destroyed. We also just passed an Iraqi tank burned out by the side of the road. We've seen some uniforms scattered here and there, and a lot of boots lying on the ground. Also some wrecked RPGs, the rocket-propelled grenades, and mortar shells and that sort of thing, but no bodies. Not today, not on this stretch of road. But we've got a ways to go, and things could get uglier as we get closer to our objective.
Certainly a possibility. Our live pictures are from Greg Kelly's camera as they have a bit of a break in the action and will certainly eventually move again. And as you know, he is not far from, he's actually in greater Baghdad even as we speak, and was able to watch the battle to take that airport, which happened overnight Iraqi time. We've talked a lot about this prisoner of war, Private First Class Jessica Lynch. And I know in the booth they were working on some videotape. Do you guys have that yet? That's going to be a minute. So in the meantime, I'll continue to talk with Rick about this journey. You know, Greg Kelly is with us as well, I guess. Greg, what are we looking at over here? Is it cleanup time?
Cleanup time. Actually, some soldiers getting a shave in. Just a few hours ago, there was fighting. No time for shaving, no time for any kind of personal grooming. This was the scene of a serious fight. Now it looks like we have pretty much cleaned up our immediate area. Now we're going to talk about cleaning up the remnants of the Republican Guard, at least the Medina Division. That's the division that we're more or less charged with taking care of. Apparently the air campaign went very well. They were attrited down to less than 50% combat capability, perhaps even less than 30%. So these guys feel like they're very much in control. And this is a great position to do a lot of things. We can proceed to clean up the Medina. We could easily proceed into Baghdad from here. these guys feel
Yeah,
like
he's not really right.
they're holding all the cards, and I can tell you after yesterday, they certainly are. That was a one-sided fight. The horrors of war. Yeah, we saw them. These guys are not doing well. Meaning the Iraqi Republican Guard. 4,000 troops came to the outskirts of Baghdad. We lost one soldier in the fighting. We saw hundreds of dead Iraqis, and there were probably hundreds more, well over 1,000. So this continues to be a one-sided fight.
It goes without saying, Greg, that the soldiers and Marines and all the rest, and you were, I'm quite sure, as well trained for these sort of eventualities, but we're still talking about 19-year-old young men out there who, quite frankly, have never seen anything like this before, and I just wonder what the effect of that is.
Well, I can tell you this. Some commanders are telling us it's a good thing that we had those minor engagements over the past 2 weeks, like near Najaf and near Anhala, because it got these guys ready for the real thing, which we're engaged in right now. And they actually matured in the process. They faced combat, they handled it well, they saw that their training worked, and it gave them just reason to believe that they would definitely be successful when the final battle came. Now, can't tell if this is the final battle or not, but these guys are doing pretty good. Now, no one has told us that they feel any kind of guilt or that they're haunted by some of the images they saw. Believe me, some of the more haunting images. You see a car full of people burned essentially to a crisp, still on fire, after being taken out by a Bradley fighting vehicle or a tank round. That's something that stays with you. But everyone here still seems upbeat, still seems focused on the job they have to do, and still glad that it looks like things might be wrapping up and they might be going home in the not too distant future. But one word on the EPWs.
Real quick, Greg,
yeah, go ahead.
I want to hear about that in just a moment. I do have to hit a commercial break. Greg Kelly talking about the realities of war, and we'll get back to him for more in just a minute. A great story as well about the man who saw Jessica Lynch, the American prisoner of war, Private First Class Lynch, being beaten inside her hospital room and walked 6 miles to tell the Marines about it, then walked that road twice more. His incredible story, as told by Knight Ridder newspapers tomorrow morning, is coming next.
Who has time for skincare that doesn't work? Not me. I know what makes my skin firmer.
Rock promises visible results with Proteins Lift Daily Moisturizer, proven to visibly lift and firm.
In just 8 weeks.
Rock, we keep our promises.
You bet they do.
Chicago, the one movie that has it all, is now the winner of 6 Academy Awards, including Best Picture of the Year. That's Chicago. Chicago. Rated PG-13. Now playing.
Mom wants to buy a car. So? She's looking at used station wagons. Used station wagons? I don't want to be dropped off at school in a used station wagon.
VHIX.com lets you search thousands of cars by price.
Now that's cool. Our mom find that?
So you can find one everybody likes.
Jenny left these downstairs. That's a fun car.
Amazing as that is. VHIX.com, roadmap to the automotive world.
AT&T Broadband is now Comcast, and we're ready to upgrade your cable TV. Give your TV a fresh new look with the most popular digital networks and Showtime for bold originals, Hollywood hits, and championship boxing. Upgrade your TV. Get up to 240 channels, including Showtime, for just $9.95 more a month, plus free upgrade installation. Upgrade your TV room with a $50 gift card to the Home Depot just for ordering Showtime with this offer. Call 1-888-824-8174 now and let Comcast upgrade your TV.
It's 21 minutes past the hour of 9 o'clock, and there are some proud Americans getting cleaned up at long last as you look live in Metro Baghdad. just outside the city limits. Were Greg Kelly to go up on a crane of 50 feet or so, he'd be able to see the Baghdad skyline. Some toothpaste to toothpaste.
Of Iraqi tanks started bearing down on your troop, Apache troop. The Bradley fighting vehicles, much lighter than a Soviet vintage T-72 tank, actually shot tanks out of existence. That's armored history, isn't it? Uranium depleted shells, much smaller, 25 millimeter shells, knocking out Soviet tanks, just putting them out of action.
Roger, it was the Bradleys engaging tanks is not your planning factor. That's why I have tanks, but they were in the area as well. I had tanks engaging. They destroyed 4 of the T-72s yesterday morning in that engagement, which we destroyed 9 and 6 BMPs. But yes, I had 2 Bradleys that one destroyed 3 T-72s, and the other destroyed 2 25 millimeter armor-piercing rounds hitting the turret of the T-72s, killing the crew and destroying the vehicle. Of course, the tank rounds, when they hit, cause a bigger explosion, and all the T-72 ammunition cooks off. You saw it yesterday for almost an hour. The ammunition continued to explode on the T-72s that the tanks hit, but the Bradley ones, the Bradley ones that they destroyed, they pretty much disabled, crew dead, turret burned for a while, but then that was it. With the vehicle is destroyed for all intents and purposes, but not the fireball by the tank 120 millimeter.
Captain Lyle, thanks very much. I'm going to pause and ask Aaron if he'd like to ask any questions that I can perhaps forward to Captain Lyle. Aaron?
Well, I have a bunch, but I'll give the floor to General Clark. He's been dying to ask questions. General?
Well, Walt did a very
Go
good ahead, job. Walt, you did a very good job of asking the key questions in this, and obviously this was a tremendous fight. It's a tremendous credit to the squadron, to the troop, to Captain Lyle's leadership. Let me ask, what was the range at which the Iraqis positioned their defensive battle position off the main road? How far were they shooting?
General Wesley Clark's forwarding this question to you. What was the range the T-72s had positioned themselves at? How far away were they from you? At what range were they shooting at you? How far were you from them?
As they had depth in their defense, because as I said, it was a organized, prepared battalion defense with fighting positions, and they had indirect systems tied in with targets, although their indirect was inaccurate as well. Their closest vehicles were some 800 to 900 meters from the road, from the interstate that we were on, in depth out to about 1,800.
So that's anywhere from a half mile to a mile?
Roger.
Okay.
Half mile to about 1.5 miles, yes, sir.
Yes, sir. General Clark, any more questions you'd like forwarded? Aaron?
Yes, there is, if I could, Aaron. First of all, just to comment on this, I mean, as Clay Lyle says, this was a prepared, organized Iraqi defense. And so regardless of what's happening at the top level, this sounds like a pretty well-trained and well-disciplined Iraqi unit. It just couldn't compete with us. But how do our soldiers feel after this? What are the troops saying today about it? Are they proud? Were they exhilarated? Are they let down? What's the mood out there?
Well, let me begin, General Clark, by telling you I saw Captain Lyle last night, and he was on the ceiling with his adrenaline rush. But let me forward the General's question. How did the troops feel afterwards, after this engagement to force on force? Were they pleased? Were they high? How did you feel? How did the troops feel after that engagement?
Obviously, every cavalryman, every tanker's dream, not that we seek this out, but it's what we train for. It's what we do. It's our lives, and it's what our systems are made for.
Yeah, but what were your soldiers saying? What were your soldiers really saying?
There was a lot of excitement. As we maneuvered out of there and the artillery began to fall and we returned to our blocking positions back through our own wire we'd established about 2 Ks to the south. There was a lot of excitement and congratulations on the troop net.
Well, there was almost a small party here last night.
We maintained our security, but Roger, we had to tell a couple of war stories as we got back together here on the ground.
Thank you very much. We've been talking with Captain Clay Lyle, commander of Apache Troop, U.S. Army 7th Cavalry, who engaged in a serious force-on-force engagement with the Iraqi Republican Guard yesterday. The score was at least 20 Iraqi tanks and armored vehicles killed, no losses for the 7th Cavalry. Back to you, Aaron.
Well, thank you. Thank Captain Lyle. Captain Lyle has a wife back at Fort Stewart, Georgia, Stephanie, a young child, and they are no doubt glad to see him looking well, if a little bit battered from it all. We'll take a break. Our coverage continues in a moment.
See you down there.
General Clark is back home in Little Rock, Arkansas. General, there were a lot of letters thrown out there, some of which I got, some of which I suspect viewers did not. Explain simply, if you can, what happened out there.
Well, what happened, what we got from the 3rd and 7th Cav is this Alpha Troop was set up in a blocking position, that is a defensive position, to protect the advance of the cavalry squadron. They were probed during the day, and then they received word that there was an enemy tank battalion 3 or 4 kilometers away from them. They then went into an advance mode down a 6-lane highway, what Clay Lyles calls the interstate. They saw the Air Force taking on the enemy battalion that was on one side of the road, but as they got down there, they found another battalion that the Air Force apparently hadn't seen that they took on the other side of the road. This was a battalion that was in a prepared defensive position. It had wire out in front of it. It had berms, the tanks, berms meaning the little earthen embankments around the tanks. The tanks were only visible from the turrets up, and the Iraqis had done a pretty good job, it sounds like, in laying out the defense. They had sighted in some indirect fire to cover the approach to the position, and the gunners were within range of their weapon systems on the road. But one of the things we've always said in the United States Army is that really our battles are won at the soldier level, at the crew level, platoon, company. Above that, the leader sets the conditions for victory, and he can sure lose the battle, but he can't win it. It's won at the bottom. It was won when those tank commanders and Bradley commanders and gunners put steel on target. And it was lost for the Iraqis when they couldn't engage. There were a lot of other reasons why they lost it. But we met them face to face. We slugged it out. We were within range of their weapons. We were just better. That's the essence of it.
Got it. Now, I want to go back to something else that was said earlier. I think it was General McChrystal who said, speaking of the Iraqis, they have not fought logically. Tell me what that, well, first of all, tell me if you agree with that, then tell me what you think he means.
Kissing his hands, kissing his feet, and cheering in their approval of him. If this was him, it's certainly some rare video footage. He hasn't been outside like this in downtown Baghdad in years. In the meantime, despite his exhortations for the people to stay and fight, they are voting with their feet. They are leaving in droves, heading north out of the Iraqi capital, throwing all their possessions on cars, trucks, and buses, long lines at gas stations, and heavy traffic on the way out of Baghdad. Allison, Brian, back to you.
Steve Harrigan live in Jordan. Thank you. And up next, we'll take you live to the front lines for a late-breaking update on the military operation underway in Iraq and now in Baghdad tonight.
Plus, special ops in northern Iraq are getting a big hand from the Kurds. Tonight, more on that and the role Kurds will play in Iraq when this is all over. We will be right back. Stay with us, everyone.
Secure your retirement. You start with your dreams. And Edward Jones.
My life, my world, it all begins with a dream.
Edward Jones.
Okay, people, what now? Systems still not connecting with remote locations?
No, sir, that's been fixed.
Applications not linking with our suppliers?
No, sir, we're good there.
Why are we here?
Shirts.
Shirts.
Yes, sir. We're a shirt company. We make shirts.
Memory upgrade. What happens when your technology lets you refocus on your business? Novell.
From my 30 years of military service, I know war is tough on families. Here and abroad, the American Red Cross helps people in these very trying times. We keep men and women in the armed forces connected with loved ones during emergencies. We also deliver humanitarian aid to those caught in the crossfire. We need your financial help now, so please call 1-800-HELP-NOW or visit redcross.org. Thank you.
Stand by for transmission, they'll check in, okay?
We are at war in very difficult situation.
As coalition forces prepare to advance on Saturday.
As we are now embedded with the U.S. military.
Long convoy of Marines is on the move here.
This weekend, Allied forces break down Iraqi defenses. Next stop, Baghdad. Insight from Paul Wolfowitz. That's Fox News Sunday with Tony Snow. Check your local listings.
Says there will be no pause in the invasion of Iraq.
William LaJeunesse is standing by with the very latest from Kuwait City. Hi, William.
Well, good morning. Yeah, it is good morning. Anyways, you know, in southern Iraq, anyways, definitely the British as well are beginning to penetrate into Basra, a city of 1.3 million people, where Iraqi defenders have held out for a good 16 days now. The Brits have blocked all the roads coming in and out of the city. The latest there was 8 dead and house-to-house fighting. About 1,000 diehard Fedayeen still hold up in the city. That's well down from the 2,500 that they believed existed there about 2 weeks ago. Even if the Brits continue to destroy Iraqi tanks, many times in part to local assistance they're getting in terms of IDing where those locations are within Basra itself. Now, in Najaf, scattered fighting there after a tense standoff Friday near the Ali Mosque. Today, artillery, we've had that. We've had visible tracer fire, rather, that was yesterday. Civilians stayed inside for the most part. A heavy coalition presence remains there to dig out these irregulars that are causing problems throughout the country, who, in that case, took sanctuary in the Ali Mosque, one of Islam's holiest sites. Now, Iraqi television on Friday broadcast statements by 2 Iraqi women, it said, who they blew themselves up on an attack on U.S. forces. Apparently, the blast killed 3 American Army Rangers in western Iraq. It happened at a checkpoint there. Also, a pregnant woman, they say, had just stepped out in front of a vehicle. She began screaming in fear, according to the CENTCOM statement. And when the Marines approached, the automobile blew up. As far as humanitarian aid, very quickly, the power is out in Baghdad. That often means that, of course, the food is spoiling, the streets are smelly. Elsewhere, humanitarian aid is, however, getting into the corners of Iraq. Medicine in Basra, flour in Erbil, also drinking water in Qasr. It is not just critical to the military campaign, but of course the future stability of Iraq, because half their population is under age 15. There's always problems with dysentery, malnutrition, a chronic problem. One thing that's kind of interesting is what did we learn in Basra that may or may not be applied to the situation in Baghdad. Of course, they had a stalemate. The Brits had basically made a run on Basra within the first 24 hours of that war, and for days there was a stalemate per se. The one thing that they did, and the first time they entered the city with 7 Challenger tanks, they knocked down 2 monuments to Saddam Hussein. Some of the experts might be thinking this foray into Baghdad today by the U.S. 3rd Infantry Division, it does make a psychological statement. That's one thing that the Brits made very clear, one thing they say they learned in Northern Ireland in terms of this aggressive policing and making these periodic incursions. It tells, number one, your enemy that we own this city. We can come and go at will, and for the most part, with impunity. It also, the Brits said, did a great deal to learn or win over the trust, if you will, of the local population. And that, in turn, had a domino effect by generating human intelligence as people began to have confidence that the coalition was here to stay and they weren't going to leave until Saddam Hussein was dead. That's when the Brits began to get all this intelligence in terms of where the Fedayeen was, where their locations were, their arms were. That's when they began to get the information about the Ba'ath Loyalists, the 200 who had a meeting one night, and they dropped 2 precision-guided weapons on that headquarters building. They believe they killed 200 Saddam Fedayeen or Ba'ath Loyalists on that one incursion. So you can't underestimate the psychological value of what is happening in Baghdad today with the 3rd ID and also the Marines making an armored column incursion right into Baghdad itself, whether or not they're staying, whether or not they got intelligence from these Iraqi generals who are coming back to the Americans and telling them where certain things are. They may also have UAV or unmanned aerial reconnaissance vehicles telling them where certain things are, going in for the knockout punch in certain areas of the city. That could be happening as well. It's been very unpredictable in the sense that some thought that by taking the airport, we were going to use that as a base of operations for a long period of time. Well, General Franks once again has in a sense, turned things over on its head and done the unconventional thing by striking immediately. Back to you.
All right, William Lajeunesse, thank you very much reporting from Kuwait City. You know, tonight, Special Ops forces in northern Iraq are working with Kurds to assist them in attacks against Iraqi government forces and to lay the groundwork for a post-war Iraq. Joining us in Washington is Kubad Talabani, Deputy U.S. Representative of the Patriotic Union of Kurdistan. Tell me what the PUK is for those who may not know.
The PUK is a Kurdish political party that has been operating in Iraqi Kurdistan since 1975, and it is struggling for the right to the self-determination for the Kurdish people.
Now, we have get a lot of information about what's been happening south. We now know that the U.S. and troops are in Baghdad proper, but what's been going on in the north? Very important.
It is important. There's been a steady build-up of U.S. presence in the north. Our first operation was actually against the Ansar al-Islam, a successful joint operation between Kurdish and American forces, wiping out this al-Qaeda affiliated group from our territories. We can now focus our efforts on Baghdad, on the real prize here, and that is the liberation of our country.
Talk about the situation in the cities of Mosul and Kirkuk.
Well, we are hearing daily reports from inside these two cities. The situation is starting to look grim. The Iraqi regime fears greatly an uprising from within these cities, so it is putting its loyalists and its Fedayeen units to use to suppress and round up any Kurds that are suspected of creating or causing an uprising in the cities.
Now, you've been watching the situation in Iraq for a long time, and we see these pictures today of Saddam Hussein reportedly on the streets of Baghdad. When you look at those pictures, do you think they're real? Are they made up? Are they from some time in the past? What's your assessment of them?
I personally don't believe anything that comes out of this regime. They're very good at their propaganda. They're very good at trying to portray an image of power. But we know that the regime's days are numbered. Whether it was him or not, I think it is irrelevant. The U.S. forces are in there. The brave U.S. forces are very close to securing Baghdad. And I think with the help of the Iraqi people and the Iraqi opposition, and the Kurds in particular, we can achieve this goal.
Are you worried about Turkey?
We're worried about all our neighbors, but I think recently the statements that have come from Ankara have reassured us somewhat. We know that they know actually that any unilateral military action in Iraqi Kurdistan will be very detrimental to our mission of liberation and to put in place a transition towards democracy. And we're hopeful that they will heed the messages from President Bush and other European leaders.
One of the things, of course, everybody wonders is what kind of government is going to be in place when, in a post-Saddam regime, in a post-Saddam environment. What do you think will happen in the north in that regard?
Well, we have a unique situation in the north,
yes,
where we have been administering ourselves for many years now. We hope to retain this level of self-governance in a future federal democratic Iraq, where we will still remain part of Iraq, but we will delegate certain powers back to the central government, but still retain self-governance in the north.
When you see the pictures that we've been showing on TV this evening of tanks rolling down the major boulevards that lead into Baghdad proper, it must be an emotional moment for you.
It is an emotional moment, and it is a moment that many Iraqis and Kurds alike do not believe is actually happening. For many people that have been fighting this regime for so long now, to think that this regime's days are finally numbered, to think that we can finally be free from this tyranny, it is very emotional and it's very exciting.
What is your greatest concern at this hour?
My greatest concern is that the United States will declare victory too soon and will not follow through with the complete reconstruction of the country.
Why is that of concern? Because it's happened before?
Because it's happened before, and because it's a very monumental task that we have ahead of us. Removing the regime is one thing, rebuilding the country along modern and democratic lines is another.
Let me stop you there for a moment. What do you need to see happen to alleviate those concerns?
We need a robust commitment for lasting, for a presence and a cooperation with the Kurds and with all the Iraqis to put us on a path towards building a democratic and federal decentralized government in Baghdad.
In a post-Saddam regime, what kind of relationship do you see the North having with the rest of the country?
I think we'll have to have a very close relationship with the rest of the country. We will hope to delegate certain powers back to the central government. We expect the central federal government of Iraq to have jurisdiction over foreign affairs, defense policy, some fiscal policy, but again, we have to have a decentralized system of governance in the country. Iraq for too long has been ruled by a centralized tyranny, and we need to devolve the power to the local and regional states.
Is that possible, given all of the history of this country and the strife, not only that comes from the regime of Saddam Hussein, but the strife from the different factions within the country?
I think it's because of the factions that this scenario is in fact possible. Since this inception of the Iraqi state, Iraq has been a failed state. It has been ruled by one ruler, one leader from one sector of Iraqi society. Iraq is a very, very diverse society. It cannot be called an Arab country. It consists of Kurds, it consists of Turkomans, it consists of Assyrians, Chaldeans, Sunni Arabs, Shia Arabs. We have such a composition that make up Iraqi society that a centralized rule cannot succeed.
Qubad Talabani, Deputy U.S. Representative of the Patriotic Union of Kurdistan. Thank you so much for joining us here tonight. Let's go back up to New York and Allison Camerata.
Thanks, Brian. 2 U.S. Marines killed at the start of the war were granted their dreams posthumously, and that's American citizenship. Both were permanent U.S. residents or so-called green card holders. They are among thousands of non-citizens who serve in the U.S. military. Trace Gallagher has more.
They are among the ultimate patriots, but they are not Americans. Green card troops, serving the nation they have chosen to make their home.
If the United States give me the opportunity to become a citizen, I served to the Army for all my life.
Today, some 37,000 foreign nationals are fighting and sometimes dying for their adopted country. Lance Corporal Jose Gutierrez from Guatemala joined the military to say thank you to America. Lance Corporal Jose Garibay came with his family from Mexico. His dream was to become a U.S. citizen.
I want people to know he was a good son. I supported his decision to join. It made him happy.
Both young Marines died for this country and were granted citizenship posthumously this week.
The few, the proud, the Marines.
The military doesn't require recruits to be Americans, though they do have to have a green card. Once they've served, citizenship is automatic.
8, 9. Don't differentiate between 10. A green card holder or an American citizen or a non-green card holder. So when we approach somebody, we're just selling the Marine Corps, meaning earning the title Marine.
The military says recruits join mainly for education and job security, but still, non-citizen enlistment is rising.
It's a way for the people like me who come to the United States to repay to the country of the United States for all what this country is doing for my people.
Today, there is a push in Congress to make it even easier for green card troops to gain citizenship by waiving the naturalization fees, lowering the service requirement from 3 years to 2, and allowing citizenship ceremonies to take place at military installations overseas. That proposal could see action later this year. In Los Angeles, Trace Gallagher, Fox News.
Up next, more on post-Saddam Iraq. How do we establish a democracy with so much ethnic infighting? We'll ask a leading U.S. diplomat.
And later, U.S. troops make a startling find in western Iraq. Is this the evidence the world has been calling for? Stick around.
For 1 week only, Comcast high-speed cable internet is at a red-hot price. Just $21.95 a month for 5 months, plus free basic installation. Act now and get a super-fast web connection at a price that really sizzles. Comcast high-speed cable internet. Now just $21.95 a month for 5 months. But you better call before time runs out. Offer ends April 6th. Call 1-888-COMCAST.
Did you want to see some brochures?
When Ian married Tula, he promised to love, honor, convert, disinfect, and eat.
Ian is a vegetarian. He doesn't eat meat.
What do you mean he don't eat no meat? That's okay. I make lamb.
Order My Big Fat Greek Wedding on in-demand pay-per-view. No big fat late fees when you order this big hit at home on Comcast.
Legends are made. Records will fall.
8th home run of this postseason.
Champions are born.
Got him! The Angels, world champions!
America's pastime returns this May.
Go do what you do.
I bet you got a gun.
Are you okay?
No. Hey, first bet I won today.
Yeah, I'm lucky. I doubt it. Lucky. Show's over, folks.
Lucky premieres Tuesday on FX. Check local listings.
Hi, I'm Serena Butler from Georgia. I'm on USS Harriet Truman, and you're watching Fox News.
A major shift in momentum tonight in Baghdad, but what happens once the shooting stops and Saddam is shown the door? Joining us now in Washington is Mark Ginsburg, former U.S. ambassador to Morocco. Hello, Ambassador Ginsburg. Thanks for being here.
Good morning.
I want to talk post-Saddam Iraq in 1 second, but first let's talk about the news of the day, the big news, and that is that we are now in Baghdad. How do you think the Iraqi citizens will react to that?
I think the Iraqi people are obviously as concerned and curious as any of us as to what will happen once it's proven that Saddam's regime has come to an end, and they can then focus on what the United States' intention is. Are we going to be staying? Are we going to be providing them with a new humanitarian government? What is going to happen in other parts of the country? Will Iraq remain a unified country? Most importantly, will their anger and resentment towards the tyranny that they've suffered under the last 40 years dissipate, or will it be targeted at the United States and the coalition? These are questions that I think remain to be answered.
The second big news item of the day is that it appears that reports of Saddam Hussein's demise may have been premature, since someone who bears sort of an uncanny resemblance to him has popped up on a videotape. What do you think that's doing to the psyche at this point of the Iraqi people?
Honestly, the way that Saddam has been portraying this conflict, he has really tried to depersonalize his role. He wants not to this be perceived as an attack by the United States against Saddam. He wants this to be portrayed as an attack by the United States against Iraq and its people. So he's tried to convert what essentially is an effort to change regimes into a comparable Palestinian conflict where he's usurped all of the symbols of the Palestinian conflict and tried to embrace them around him without him being the sort of Arafat in the conflict. He has, for example, created the Al-Aqsa Brigades. He has called